It was supposed to be just another podcast interview, but the moment Donald Trump started bragging about his perfect family and his genius son Barron, the smug mask cracked wide open. What began as Trump flexing his power quickly turned into the most explosive takedown of his life. When Joe Rogan looked Trump dead in the eyes and dropped a single devastating question that shattered the president's cocky grin, triggered a screaming meltdown, and blew the lid off the darkest, most explosive family secret Trump had spent years lying to keep buried forever. This was the one people had been waiting for and whispering about for months. President Donald Trump sitting down for a long, unfiltered conversation with Joe Rogan. The invitation itself had shocked everyone. Trump was in the middle of his second term, buried in meetings and crises in Washington, yet he had said yes. The day of the recording finally arrived. The studio felt different that morning. Lights on, mics ready, cameras rolling from the start. At first, it was pretty normal small talk. Joe asked how things were going in the White House, the usual stuff about the country moving forward. Trump jumped right in, talking about the economy, the deals he'd made, how America was winning again. He leaned into the mic, voice strong and steady, throwing out numbers and stories from his time in office. "We had the greatest economy anyone's ever seen," he said, pointing a finger for emphasis. "Jobs everywhere, borders secure, people respected us again." Joe listened, nodding along, letting him roll. But Joe wasn't there to just nod. He started pushing a little. "Mr. President, what does real leadership look like when things get tough? Not the speeches, but the actual calls you have to make." Trump didn't miss a beat. He fired back with examples, talking about tough negotiations and standing up to critics. The energy picked up fast. It wasn't casual anymore. Then, without any warning, Trump shifted gears hard. Trump leaned back in the chair, but his energy didn't relax. He kept his eyes on Joe like he was making sure every word landed. "Let me tell you about Barron," he said, voice picking up speed. "That kid is sharp. Really sharp. He picks up things fast, remembers details most adults miss. And physically, he's strong. Tall for his age, good build, moves like an athlete. People say he looks just like me, and you know what? He does. 100% Trump. Same drive, same fight in him. I see myself in that boy every single day." Trump smiled wide as he talked, but it wasn't soft. It was proud, almost defiant, like he was putting the whole world on notice that his son was built different. He didn't stop there. Trump shifted forward again, gesturing with one hand. "And Ivanka, she's been amazing with him. From day one, she's always there for her little brother. Protective, caring, always checking in. Their bond is something special, Joe. It's sacred, a real family connection that nobody can touch. She treats him like he's her own responsibility, and that means everything to me. That's what family's supposed to look like. Loyalty, real loyalty." His tone got heavier on the word loyalty, like he was driving the point home. The studio stayed quiet except for the low hum of the equipment. Everyone could feel Trump laying down the foundation, building this picture of a tight, unbreakable unit. Then Trump launched into a story about Barron's birth. He told it like it was some kind of miracle moment. "When Barron came into the world, it was perfect timing," he said, eyes lighting up. "Melania was strong through the whole thing. We were in New York. Everything lined up exactly right after a big trip we took. The doctor said it was one of the smoothest deliveries they'd seen for a boy that size. Barron came out healthy, crying loud, ready to take on the world. It felt like destiny. He kept adding details, talking about the exact week, the hospital, even how quickly they were back home celebrating. But as he spoke, one part didn't line up. He mentioned they had just returned from an overseas event that public records showed happened weeks later than he was claiming. The timeline felt off by a solid month. Joe caught it immediately. He didn't say anything yet, just filed it away in his head, watching Trump's face for any sign he realized the slip. Trump kept going like nothing happened, still riding the wave of pride. He wrapped the birth story with a big declaration. "Nobody breaks the Trump family," Trump said, voice rising with confidence. "We stick together no matter what. All the lies, all the attacks from the media and the haters, they bounce right off. Barron is proof of that strength. Ivanka, too. We're solid. Always have been. Always will be." He slapped the arm of the chair lightly for emphasis, looking straight at Joe as if daring him to challenge the statement. The words hung in the air, bold and final. For a second, the studio felt smaller, like Trump had just drawn a line in the sand. Joe waited a beat, then asked in a calm, almost casual tone, "Sounds like a tight family. What about Melania and all this? How does she fit into the day-to-day with Barron?" It was a simple question, nothing aggressive, but Trump's reaction was instant. His shoulders tensed. For a split second, his eyes widened and his voice caught, a tiny shake slipping through before he covered it. "Melania? She's a great mother, of course," he said quickly, forcing a laugh that sounded a little too loud. "She's always been there. Strong woman." He shifted in his seat, changing the subject fast. "But like I said, the whole family unit is what matters. Ivanka steps up when she needs to. That's the beauty of it." The laugh faded quick, and Trump went right back to talking about Barron's future plans, but the brief crack was there. Joe noticed it clear as day. Trump had recovered fast, but the stumble told Joe this topic hit deeper than the proud father act led on. Trump kept talking about family like he owned the room, but then he did something nobody saw coming. He brought the rumors up himself. "You know what they're saying out there, Joe," he said, leaning closer to the mic. "These disgusting people are claiming Barron isn't even Melania's kid. They're saying he's Ivanka's son. Can you believe that garbage? It's the dirtiest attack I've ever seen. My enemies, the fake news, the deep state hacks, they made it up to destroy me and tear my family apart. It's sick." His voice got louder, angrier. He wasn't waiting for Joe to ask. He was shoving the rumor right onto the table, calling it out as a vicious lie from people who hated him. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I brought proof," Trump said, holding it up. "This is a handwritten letter from Melania herself. She wrote it right after Barron was born." He unfolded it slowly, making sure the cameras caught it, and started reading out loud in a strong, deliberate voice. "My dearest Donald, Barron is our son, born from our love. He is healthy. He is ours, and no one will ever take that away from us. I am so proud to be his mother." Trump read the whole thing, sentence by sentence, his tone full of satisfaction. When he finished, he slapped the letter down on the table. "There it is. Straight from Melania. Case closed. Anyone who says different is lying." Right then, something shifted in the back of the studio. Mark, the senior producer who had worked with the Trump family back in 2017 on a few private events, couldn't hide his reaction. His eyes widened for a second, and he shook his head slightly, almost without thinking. Trump caught it immediately. He turned his head sharp toward the control room window. "Hey, you back there," Trump barked, pointing straight at Mark. "I saw that look. You got something to say? You worked with us in 2017. You know the truth. Speak up if you're so brave. We're live here." The whole studio froze. Mark's face went tight. He didn't speak, but his hands gripped the edge of the desk. Trump stared him down for a long couple of seconds, the challenge hanging heavy in the air. "That's what I thought," Trump muttered, turning back to Joe with a smirk. "See? Even the people who know better get nervous when the lies get called out." Trump wasn't done. He pointed a finger at Joe now. "And you, Joe, I thought you were different. But you invited me here, and I can tell you're part of this rumor machine too. You let these stories breathe. You're playing for the other side, feeding the same garbage that's been going around for years. His words came fast and hard, like an accusation meant to put Joe on the defensive. The energy in the room turned electric. Crew members glanced at each other, unsure what was about to happen next. Joe stayed calm, but he didn't let it slide. He looked down at the letter still on the table and asked in a steady voice, "Mr. President, that letter mentioned specific dates and the hospital in New York. But the timeline you described earlier about the overseas trip doesn't match up with when the letter says Barron was born. There's a clear gap of several weeks. How do you explain that?" The question was direct, no yelling, just facts. Trump's face changed instantly. His jaw clenched and his cheeks flushed red. He slammed his hand down on the table, not super hard, but loud enough to make the mics pick it up. "That's enough," he snapped. "You're questioning my family now, after I just showed you the letter? Apologize right now, Joe. Say you're sorry for even bringing that up. This is exactly the kind of cheap shot I'm talking about." His voice boomed through the studio. The anger was real this time, the first real flare-up. He stared at Joe with narrowed eyes, breathing heavier, waiting for the apology that wasn't coming. Joe let the silence sit for just a second after Trump's outburst. Then he leaned forward, voice still calm and even, like he was talking about the weather. "Mr. President, if these rumors are really that false and the letter proves it, why not just do a public DNA test and shut it all down once and for all? One quick test, results out in the open. End of story. No more questions." Trump's eyes narrowed. He shook his head hard, almost laughing in disbelief. "A DNA test? Are you serious right now, Joe? That's not happening. Never. You want me to let strangers poke around in my family's private business. That's an invasion. It's disrespectful to my wife, to my kids, to everything we've built. I'm not going to humiliate my family just because some haters on the internet won't shut up. No way." His voice got louder with every sentence, full of that classic Trump fire. He jabbed a finger toward the mic like he was ending the discussion right there. But then something slipped. Trump kept going, trying to sound in total control. "I don't need some public circus to prove what I already know. I already did a private test years ago, okay? It's done. It's handled." The words came out fast, like he was still riding the anger. As soon as they left his mouth, he realized what he'd said. His face tightened, and he tried to backtrack immediately. "I mean, look, the point is I'm not doing it publicly. End of discussion." Joe didn't miss a beat. He sat up straighter, eyes locked on Trump. "Wait, you just said you already did a private test. So you have the results. Why not release those then? If it clears everything up, why keep them hidden?" The question hit clean and direct. Trump's mouth opened, then closed again. For a split second, he looked cornered, his usual confidence cracking just a little. The studio went dead quiet except for the low buzz of the equipment. Everyone felt the shift. Trump had given away more than he meant to, and now Joe was pressing right on that opening. Joe didn't wait long. He reached over to his laptop and hit play on a short audio file he had ready. A distorted voice, clearly someone trying to stay anonymous, came through the speakers. "I was there in the early days with the family. Ivanka was hands-on with Barron from the very beginning. She handled most of the nighttime feedings, the doctor visits, even signed some of the paperwork when things were complicated. She treated him like he was hers to protect. Melania was around, but Ivanka was the one really running point on a lot of it." The clip was only about 20 seconds long, but it landed like a bomb. The voice gave just enough detail, specific dates, a private pediatrician's name to feel real. Trump exploded. He shot forward in his chair and pointed straight at Joe, his face turning red. "You son of a bitch, you're playing dirty now. That's fake. Totally fake. You're working for the deep state, aren't you? Bringing in some paid liar to smear my family on my own interview. This is exactly what they do. Use people like you to spread lies and division." His voice boomed through the studio, raw and furious. Joe didn't raise his voice. He stayed seated, steady. Mr. President, I'm not working for anybody. I'm just asking questions and showing what people are saying. If the audio is fake, prove it. Tell us why Ivanka was so involved so early. Why does the timeline keep slipping every time you talk about it? Trump slammed his hand on the table again, louder this time. You want loyalty? You want truth? Then stop attacking my family. I've been fighting for this country while you sit here playing gotcha with rumors. You're supposed to be an independent voice, but you sound just like the rest of them. Deep state puppets? All of you. Where's your loyalty to the truth, Joe? Or are you just another hack trying to take me down? Joe fired back, still calm but sharper now. Loyalty to the truth means facing the hard questions, not dodging them. You brought the rumors up. You read the letter. You slipped on the private test. If everything is clean, why does every answer create more questions? That's not deep state. That's just basic accountability. The two men stared each other down, voices overlapping for a few heated seconds. Trump kept jabbing his finger, repeating deep state and disloyal. Joe kept pushing on the facts, the timeline, the audio. The argument got louder and faster. No one in the studio moved. The air felt thick, charged with real anger and real stakes. The studio felt like it was running out of air. Trump was breathing harder now, his face flushed. He leaned all the way forward in his chair, eyes locked on Joe like he was about to end the whole interview. You think you can sit here and pull this crap on me? Trump said, his voice low and sharp. I've built empires. I've won elections. One word from me in your little podcast career is over. Done. Nobody will touch you after this. You'll be canceled so fast you won't know what hit you. That's what happens when you cross the wrong people, Joe. Joe didn't move. He didn't blink. He just sat there for a long second, letting Trump's threat sit in the room. The crew behind the glass stayed frozen. Then Joe took a slow breath, his voice staying calm and steady, almost quiet. Mr. President, he paused, letting the name hang there. The whole studio went dead silent. Barron, is he your son or your sin? The question hit like a slap. For half a second, nothing moved. Trump's face turned deep red, veins showing on his forehead. His hand shot out and grabbed the microphone so tight his knuckles went white. Then he exploded. I will never take a DNA test, Trump roared, his voice booming through every speaker in the studio. Do you hear me? Never! No one is going to break my family apart. Not you, not the media, not anybody. Barron is my son, my blood, and I will destroy anyone who tries to say different. His words came out fast and furious, spit flying as he shouted. The mic shook in his hand. The anger was raw, uncontrolled, nothing like the polished version people usually saw on TV. Trump slammed the microphone down on the table so hard the sound cracked through the studio like a gunshot. He shoved his chair back and stood up fast, towering over the setup. His finger jabbed straight at Joe first, then swept across the whole crew behind the cameras. You're all finished, he yelled, voice still thundering. Every single one of you. You'll pay a heavy price for this. Lawsuits, investigations, everything. Mark my words. You will regret the day you tried to take down Donald Trump and his family. He turned toward the door, storming off with heavy steps, still shouting over his shoulder. The crew scattered out of his way, but halfway to the exit, Trump suddenly stopped. He froze mid-step, back still to the room. For a moment, his shoulders tensed like he was fighting with himself. He started to turn his head, mouth opening like he was about to say something else. His voice came out shaky for the first time, almost broken. You don't understand. The real reason. The words trailed off. His face twisted, like he was right on the edge of letting something huge slip out. Then he caught himself. He clamped his mouth shut, shook his head hard, and slammed the door open. He stormed out without another word, the heavy studio door banging shut behind him. Joe Rogan stayed right where he was, sitting back in his chair, hands resting calmly on the table. The red recording light blinked steadily. Everything felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. After a long moment, Joe finally broke the silence. His voice was low and steady, no drama, just straight talk. Sometimes the truth doesn't need to be screamed at the top of your lungs, he said. It just needs to be asked. Right then, Mark, the senior producer who had worked with the Trump family back in 2017, couldn't hold it in anymore. He stepped out from behind the control room glass and walked into the shot, his face tight. Joe, I'm sorry, but I have to say this before we cut, Mark said, his voice shaking a little but clear. That letter Trump read? The dates he mentioned don't line up with the medical records I saw when I was on that job. There was a whole month gap. I kept quiet earlier because, well, you know, but people need to hear it. The timeline has never added up. The words landed hard. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Joe just nodded slowly, letting it sit. Before anyone could react further, Joe's phone buzzed loudly on the table. He picked it up, looked at the screen, and his eyebrows went up. Well, this is fast, he said. He turned the phone toward the camera and read the message out loud in a flat voice. Mark, you're fired. Consider this your official notice. My legal team will be filing suit against you for defamation and breach of confidentiality by tomorrow morning. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Donald J. Trump. The studio went even quieter. Mark's face went pale, but he didn't back down. He just stood there, staring straight into the camera, like he knew what he had just done. Joe set the phone down and looked directly into the lens. All right, that's the end of this episode, and he said, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just asking the question every one of you watching is probably thinking right now. Why does the truth scare power so much? Why does a simple question make someone explode like that? You tell me. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'll see where this goes. He gave a small nod, then signaled to cut the live stream. The red light finally went off. The crew slowly started moving again, whispering to each other, checking equipment. One by one they filtered out, still shaken. Soon the studio was almost empty. Joe stayed sitting there alone. The lights dimmed down low. He didn't get up right away. He just stared at the door Trump had stormed out of, his expression calm but serious. The silence wrapped around him like a blanket. No music, no closing music. Sting, nothing. Just Joe in the quiet studio, eyes fixed on that empty doorway, like he was still waiting for the final answer that never came. That silence said more than any shouting match ever could. The episode was over, but the real conversation had just begun.